Hello and welcome to Goff Legal. My name is Ali Goff. I am the owner and founder. And if you are a trustee of a trust that is now irrevocable in California, this video is for you. This video is designed to go over how to stay organized when you are a trustee in an administration. Knowing that people come from many different backgrounds and serve in this role. Some are professionals and do this for a living, and some people have never done this before and they're doing it for the first time. The reason why organization is so important because it will help you stay on track. It will help you fulfill your duties and your obligations to the trust and under the probate code. And also it will make your life easier. It is not a surprise to those of you who've been doing this for a number of years. This is a time-consuming and can be really hard process to go through. Not only if you are a surviving family member, you're grieving, you're also trying to figure out the ins and outs of someone's life that maybe you didn't know all the details of. If you're a professional, you still know there's stuff you've got to go figure out and go grab. And so I'm going to go over some tips to keep you organized as you go through this trust administration process. So, first of all, one of your duties as trustee is to identify and locate trust assets. That means you need to be going through all the different places where the trustor had information. Since we're in a digital age and the amount of digital information is increasing by the millisecond, it's important that you don't forget about computers, iPads, online cloud storage, right? Some of those things might be really important and you don't want to forget about that. The first place you'd look is in their trust binder. Hopefully, especially if they work with our office, there's a big fat binder that says Goff Legal or When I Die or Last Will and Testament or Trust of so-and-so. That will have all the documents. Sometimes it'll have a schedule of assets. That's a really good starting place. Schedule of assets, schedule of non-trust assets, maybe some beneficiary designation forms, all of that. So just know the first thing you've got to do is go grab all this information. Now, rather than just sort of sticking it in a pile, my recommendation would be if it is paper that you touch, get file folders, label them, and as you get correspondence or information for each new asset, put it in its own category. That's number one. Two, I would create a spreadsheet. I'm a big digital person, so I think it's important that you know that your limitations. But if you've got a computer, start a spreadsheet, a Google Sheet, or some other software that lets you track assets. Put the asset, the information, expected or maybe estimated valuation that you have for date of death, and then any notes you might need, because what's going to happen is you're going to go at the very end and do an accounting. And the accountant's going to say, what were the assets you started with? And you'll give them this list of all the assets that you started with, and they're on all the transactions that happened after that. The other thing is making sure that you keep records of everything that you do moving forward, right? Record keeping is going to be kind of a big theme for this particular video. All right, your next duty is to control, maintain, and preserve trust property. So this means you need to make sure that you know where all the property is at all times, whether it's valuable jewelry, whether that's promissory notes, antiques, vehicles, if that's a safe deposit box, if something needs to be locked up, if there are firearms, are you licensed to keep those in your house? If the answer is no, you need to find someone who is licensed to FFL and pay them to babysit those guns until you find out where they need to go. And again, keep a record of where all these assets went and when they went there, right? So, oh, I remember this jewelry's in this safe deposit box. This is really incredibly important, especially if the settlor, the person who passed, had multiple residences or had multiple different things. You don't want to lose property. So keep a record of that. You have a duty to keep trust property separate, which means opening separate bank accounts. You are not allowed to put trust property into your own bank account. You're not allowed to keep a trust money in the original Social Security number of the settlor. You have to get a new EIN or tax identification number and open a new bank account and put that money in there and track it from there. Any checks should be written from the trust. Any expenses should be paid from the trust, right? You should not be using your personal funds for this. And that's what I'm going to say about that. It's very, very important. Don't mess that one up. All right, you have a duty to follow the terms of the trust and the laws governing the trust administration. I say this because in this how to keep organized, because you've got to make sure that you're following the trust terms. So if you've reviewed it or your attorney has reviewed it, there might be a section that says this particular asset goes to a particular person. If that's the case, you need to know that you shouldn't be selling it. Let's say a house, right? On my death, I give this house to this house to this kid, and this bank account to the third kid. And you decide, oh, there's some houses, some cash, there's 3 kids. I know what to do. I'm going to sell the houses and give everyone a cash. Nope. No. Organization says, look at your trust. Make sure you know the terms of the trust before you do anything. My recommendation is have a typed summary of the trust so that you kind of keep in your mind, who am I dealing with? Who are the people I need to be thinking about when making any decisions around these assets, around these investments, around the personal property? So have a trust summary, a list of exactly who your beneficiaries are, the name of the trust, the date of the trust, the tax ID number, kind of a cheat sheet is my recommendation. Just have a cheat sheet, which is sort of your like guiding principle of, let's not forget these really important things. Because sometimes you get in the weeds and you're moving along, you just don't think about it. Whoop, stop, please think about it. All right. You also have the duty to exercise the standard of care as if a prudent person would under the similar circumstances. This comes up a lot with investment of assets. So as someone who needs to be really organized, that probably means a meeting with a financial advisor to look at the assets, look at the investments, and make sure that they are prudently invested. If your family member like to invest in, let's say, all Apple, and the trust requires that you are prudently invested under the circumstances, depending on the case, it's arguably that's not a prudent investment because what if Apple goes under? All of the money is gone. And so you'd work with a professional advisor, you will follow their advice on what to do with it. Remembering what I said earlier, if that Apple stock goes to somewhere, you should not be selling that Apple stock because it's going to be going to someone. So you've got to keep these things. You see why organization is so important. You've got to keep them in mind as you're going through your checklist. Meet with the investor and decide what needs to be done and what can I do and what should I do. All right, the duty of loyalty and impartiality. This one's important. For organization's sake, just treat everyone equally. But if someone has information that they're looking for, you are required to provide it to them, right? You don't have to give them, like, let's say every day you have to give them a report. That's not what I'm saying. But if someone wants to know, what's the status of the administration? How are you doing with collecting assets? What's the timeline for distribution? If you're organized, you'll be able to say pretty easily, hey, I've marshaled these 4 accounts. These 2 are giving me trouble and I'm working with my attorney on them, and the house is protected and we're going to put it on the market maybe in the spring. Easy, right? Really simple to give someone an update versus to go, I have no idea. When did I collect that account? Did I collect that account? I wonder where that account is, right? Those were not the words I'd like to hear coming from my trustee's mouth. I'd like to hear I have that statement organized in a folder. Let me go ahead and get it for you, right? So the more organized you are, the faster this administration usually goes, usually the more cost effective, because if you're working with an attorney who has to ask you 4 times for the same information, you are paying that attorney to ask you for that information 4 times. If they ask for it once and you gave it to them, you've just saved 3 times of asking for information. And law firms are not cheap. So the more organized you are, the faster the law firm can do their job and the less money they're usually going to charge you for those sorts of things. All right, let's see here. Duty to avoid conflicts of interest. Again, keep records, good records of which beneficiaries you tell what information to. You don't want to tell one sister something and not the other because you like one sister more. Red flag. You cannot treat one of them differently, even if you like them differently. This is a job where you need to be impartial and you need to treat them equally. Sometimes this might mean telling all the beneficiaries, my lawyer will send you a letter that will update you all on the status at the same time. You're fulfilling your obligation, and you're also not worried about telling one something that you're not telling the other person. All right, duty to enforce claims against the trust and defend against claims against the trust. So that is your obligation. How would you know if there are claims or if you need to enforce claims unless you have, again, thoroughly reviewed the settlor's records? Were there any pending lawsuits? Have you checked the mail to see if they've gotten notice of anyone? Has anyone filed a claim saying that they need to be paid? stay on top of those things. If you get anything from the court or any credit notification, automatically call your attorney and say, hi, I got this information. Please advise me on the next steps. And they will go, oh yeah, we got a copy of that. Here's the hearing date. Here's the process. Here's what you should expect. Here's what we need from you to get moving forward, right? Super simple. Maybe not simple, but they'll take care of you. All right, duty to act reasonably when exercising any discretion. You've got to put your trustee hat on. You've got to put on what would a reasonable person do if they were trustee, not what would mom want me to do necessarily. Sometimes that's a factor, but honestly, that is not the best factor in determining what we do after mom has passed. So think about making decisions based on these records you have, right? Should you be taking out a loan on a property? Well, look at your financial tracking sheet and see what's the status of the finances. Maybe it warrants, maybe it doesn't, but make sure those decisions are based on good organization. You do need to account to the beneficiaries. That is a requirement. For those of you who are fiduciaries, you know that. It's coming. The best way to save money is to keep organized records of every single transaction and every single bank and brokerage statement from the date you take office until the accounting period ends. My suggestion is to download those on a regular basis, put them in an electronic folder that is easy to share with the accountant. I know there are places where you can waive accountings. If you are a trustee, do not count on that because you don't want someone to say, hey, I need those accounting statements. And turns out you have to go back for 2 years and start downloading. And what if they deleted them off their server? Or what if you move banks? This is not a fun game, not a fun game to play. You have the duty not to delegate improperly. So just know that there are things you can and can't delegate, but know that you're responsible for literally everything. Even if you say, well, I asked my friend to handle that for me. If they did a bad job, as you as trustee are on the hook. So be very, very careful what you delegate. And then if there are trustees, co-trustees, you're working with another person, know that you guys need to work together, right? You can't necessarily just make decisions all on your own. The trust will tell you what you can and can't do. But you've got to work together. And then lastly, this organization is really important because you have the duty to maintain confidentiality. You've got to make sure that the trust and records are confidential and you're only giving to beneficiaries that you were supposed to. This shouldn't be sent out to everyone. You shouldn't be giving trust documents to all sorts of people or filing with the courts if it's unnecessary. So make sure that when you are sending out, let's say an email, you send out a particular file, not the entire folder that may or may not have confidential information in it. So the more organized you are in paper and online, the more cost effective and the faster this trust administration process will be. Obviously, there's lots of software tools you could consider. If this is your one and only trust administration, I don't know that that's a great investment, but do consider if the complexities warrant, it might be worth getting something like QuickBooks to keep care of transactions or hiring a bookkeeper to assist with some of the bill pay or those sorts of things. Know that you've got options in most trusts to hire people like the attorney, like the CPA, to assist you in making sure that your job is done properly. So I hope that's been helpful for all of our trustees who would like to be organized and find out why organization is so important. If you have any questions, you can contact us at gofflegal.com and we're happy to chat about it. All right, thanks.